Welcome to another Adventure Mechanics side quest. I'm Chandler. Today we're going to continue the Zero Review game series on Steam with Pixel Knight. Pixel Knight was released in 2023 under Eros Video Games. It's not their first game, either on Steam or on itch. They've since released the beginning of another game on itch about a month after releasing Pixel Knight in 2023, from what I can tell. So we aren't talking about the developer's first game here, although they only have released a couple games and are pretty inexperienced. They have released other games before Pixel Knight. It does appear they have gone dormant after their last game in 2023, with no notable updates or releases since then, however. Even their Patreon account seems to have gone dormant around that time as well. Let's talk about the game in question. Pixel Knight is a platforming beat-em-up. In it, you will face platforming challenges on top of fighting various flavors of Goomba-style monsters. The artwork is very good, although it is missing a lot of transition frames, such as jumping and getting hit. I'm not particularly surprised, since I was able to find the asset pack used for the skeleton enemy in particular on itch.io. As such, I'm not going to comment further on the art, since it's likely composed of almost entirely from asset packs. The choice of packs do work well together, though, which is the point for the designer. I will note that even when you purchase assets, unless the license explicitly forbids modification, change them to fit your game, like making wall jump animations for the main player, or jump animations in general. I talked about assets more in a previous side quest if you're interested in more of my thoughts on using asset packs. The musical choices in the game are surprisingly upbeat and definitely make the vibe of the game more engaging. I suspect that the music follows the art in that it's likely a best fit instead of music composed for the game directly. Like art, that means I'll only be critiquing on how it fits the game. Some of the pairings, such as the level select screen, don't really match the rest of the theme of the game. If the designer chose music more holistically and went for a specific style, like dark gothic or something like that, then the audioscape may have been a bit better. There are a lot of additional mechanics in this game that you can engage with, or you can ignore. There's a dash, for example, I never touched while I was testing this game. It shows in the Steam trailer, but I never ended up feeling like I had to use it. Overall, this game has a decent representation of an action platformer, but there are a lot of things missing from it that are holding the game back. Let's talk about movement. In an action platformer, you typically have a ramp up to max speed, and then a ramp down after you let go of the button. It makes the game feel like it has weight. This game has an all or nothing in terms of speed, and that doesn't really feel great. Jumping has no pre or post jump animations, and it makes the game feel like it's stilted while jumping. There's no animation at all for the player in the air, either up or down, and it adds to that stilted feeling even more. I didn't notice the jump itself feeling particularly bad per se, but it didn't feel great either. May the gods have mercy on your soul if you want to attack in midair, however. That will kill all horizontal momentum and send you straight to the briny depths. I know it sounds like I'm harping on this game's movement, and I am, but it's competing with the likes of Shovel Knight, Hollow Knight, Abathur, to say nothing of the pure platformers like the Super Mario series. And missing this most fundamental mechanic in the game is going to turn off a lot of players at the very start. If the developer spent more time working on how movement felt, I feel like this game would have reached a larger audience alone. Level design needs to be changed on top of that, though. For some reason, the designer has a fetish for blind jumps and jumps at the absolute edge of the player's capability. I know that creates tension, but from level 1 to level 4, all of the regular levels, every jump felt like it was going to be my end. And don't get me started on how the blind jumps were not telegraphed very well. You can even see one in the Steam trailer for this game if you're curious. If you watch that and the blind jump in that doesn't bother you, great, you might actually enjoy this game. But I don't know very many people that enjoy blind jumps. They weren't fun in platformers in the 90s, and they're not fun now. That one-note jump makes all the levels feel absolutely basic. There's just enough detail in the background to not call it a test level, but it's not much beyond that. If the designer wanted to continue working on this game, he needs to go back and think of the challenges that each level is going to have. The leaps of faith and blind jumps each level gets tiresome very quickly, and there's not much beyond running from the left to right, with some borderline unfair jumping challenges in between on this game. If certain levels were dedicated to more interesting challenges or interactions with the enemies, then I feel like the game would have a lot more to it. I'll save most of my thoughts on enemies for a little bit later, though. The second part of the game is combat. It's basic, but it has just enough feedback for the player to feel that it's functional. It's not great, much like the movement was, but it is good enough. The player can strike from head to toe with one click and take out the vast majority of enemies quickly. Most of the enemies will flash when hit and emit a sound along with usually a pain state. This is the very minimum I expect from a game with combat, and this game doesn't do anything beyond it. Yes, there is a dash, but as I said earlier, you don't really need it. There's also magic, but again, you don't really need it. There's a lot of stats in the game you won't ever really care about. There's a lot of mechanics you won't ever use. Do you kind of get what I'm going with here? The designer put more mechanics in before they fully fleshed out any one of the mechanics. They're all functional, but none of them feel great. Even fighting enemies feels bad in that Steam trailer. It seems like the designer was trying to make it feel like it was a slower game than it actually is, especially when you can speed click enemies to death. And if I can speed click an enemy to death, why would I want to use dashing or magic? The main solution I can think of is to make the enemies more interesting, add a slowdown to the swipes of the main player, but that isn't in the game. As I said in the beginning, enemies will move left to right on a platform, like a Goomba. Once they hit the edge of their patrol route, they'll turn around and go to the other edge. If the player gets too close, they'll stop and face the player. There are no static enemies that provide a combat challenge. There are no real flying enemies aside from one that I noticed that's placed slightly above your attack range. On that note, there's no ranged enemies in this game. If they're found later in the game, like in the Infinite Dungeon, they're introduced way too late to be relevant. Like jumping and movement, combat ends up feeling flat and one note. If there was more variance in it, it would make the game a lot better. But as it stands, enemies don't actually add much to this game. When you visit town, you will also experience the trouble that the UI has. You can open up your inventory, magic, or whatever you want with a single button press. That's not the issue. The issue is when you want to do anything on the windows. I was able to brute force myself into figuring out how to stash things, sell loot, and purchase potions. I never could figure out how to upgrade equipment, though. Sure, you can put your greaves in the upgrade window with the components, but how do you actually do the upgrade? The menu doesn't say, nor does it show anything helpful in the controls. The game seems to revel in being obnoxiously obtuse. For instance, you can not only open up the inventory, but you can open up the pets, magic, and trade windows all at once too. None of this is the type of thing you want to see in your UI. At all. Having more control explanation, possibly being optional to turn off in each menu, would go a long way towards making them more user-friendly and understandable. And you should not be able to open them all up at once. Does this game deserve to be put on the no review list? Probably. There is an interesting idea here, but it's either not fleshed out enough or not implemented well in the first place. Pixel Knight feels like a game that was made by one person that did not get any notable feedback from playtesters before releasing it. If it did get playtest time, it certainly wasn't blind playtesting, and it made the game so much worse for that. Yes, the game has a low price, and yes, it is a relatively short play, but if the developer wanted it to actually find an audience, there needs to be a lot more work done mechanically, artistically, and layout-wise. Considering I'm reviewing it years after the fact, I doubt it would ever reach an audience beyond those morbidly curious. I certainly understand why it has no reviews after examining it, though. I don't want to bash on this game any more than I need to understand why it's on the no review list, though, so I'll stop here. If you are the developer and listening to this, and you want to talk about this game, please reach out. I would love to hear what you went through designing this game and the process you had in making it. If you're just a listener and have thoughts on this game or this series, reach out below or in various social media. My handle is @JCSuron. This has been another Adventure Mechanics Side Quest. I'll talk to you next time. The intro and outro music are excerpts from Plinian, retro gaming version, royalty free. Music provided and produced by Lone Peak Music. Link in the description.